Brace yourself for what I'm about to say. Leo Fender made mistakes.
Kiss your mother with that mouth? You've gone mental. I'm getting out of here.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Relax, guy. Before you get your panties all in a bunch, I have to assure you that I love Fender. I'm even considering building a copy of Leo Fender's very first guitar, even though I don't build copies. I love Leo Fender. I love a lot of the designs from Fender. I don't love all of them. And there are some details that he didn't get right. And people will whine and complain, oh, you're such a little... No one should change anything if Leo Fender did it. But in spite of what Leonwood Fender's fanboys and fangirls might say in forums and in the comments sections, he was not infallible. And even though he was a cool guy that designed a lot of really cool guitars, he definitely made some mistakes. And because of the ubiquity of his instruments, a lot of his mistakes became industry standards. And you'll see many of these mistakes appear on modern boutique guitars and modern factory guitars. So today we're going to discuss some of these issues and fix some of them. In today's episode of Top 5 Fender. Our first project is a Trent guitar. Very beautiful, nice design, definitely very heavily Fender inspired. And we're also going to be working on this 1965 Fender Mustang that has some issues that make it currently virtually unplayable. I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, and a lot of know-it-alls who don't work on guitars are going to tell me I'm wrong, but these are the most common issues that I see occurring with Fender guitars. And some of them, even Leo Fender would agree with, as he reprised his designs at the G&L factory. We'll touch on what improvements Leo implemented at the G&L factory a little later, but for now, let's get started on this Trent. And what we're doing is making a new pickguard for this new pickup layout, and there is some issues with the straightness of the neck and the frets. We're also going to see about adding a spoke wheel adjuster to the truss rod. And that, of course, is our first Fender flaw. The adjustment screw is not readily accessible without some or a lot of disassembly. On a case-by-case basis, some are moderately accessible and some require full removal of the neck. And many vintage instruments have fallen victim to this sort of abuse. And so I investigated further and I found an old Fender manual that says you should use a tiny flathead screwdriver. So this is a rare circumstance where using the wrong screwdriver is the right decision. The restoration of this Fender Mustang bass is available in a video linked here. The conversion of this bass into a baritone is in a video available here. And this guitar we're going to work on today. But first we're going to start with the Trent guitar, whose truss rod, inspired by Fender, is neither reachable with a specialty tool nor a small flathead screwdriver. Starting with the pickguard, although it fits pretty nicely, I think we can get the lines a little tighter, and we need to adjust these. He does want to keep the pickups body mounted, so we're going to make the pockets just the right size for these Strat style single coils. But because the original pickup cutouts aren't exactly centered where the strings are centered, we are going to mark where these screws are of the new pickups just by adding some tape here. Actually, I'm marking the outer edge of the pickups, not the screw holes. There is also not much break angle over these saddles, and these strings really easily flop back and forth, on the treble side at least. And so we're either going to carve a groove into the saddles and or add a neck shim. Another blunder of Leo Fender's Fender Flub 2 is his vibrato tailpiece, which he calls a tremolo, and also the bridge. This bridge has its own issues, but it is slightly different than the Fender Jazzmaster version. It's more akin to a Mustang bridge, although the Mustang bridge has individual barrels instead of 3 offset barrels. But the issue on the Jazzmaster tailpiece has to do more with break angle there's not enough to keep steady pressure on the saddles, and people complain about the vibrations behind these saddles. Some people love it. Other people get a buzz stop, or commonly will shim the neck so you get greater brake angle over the saddles. Look how beefy these switch screws are. I wonder what kind of switch this is. All right, that's an Oak Grigsby 3-way switch, which you can pick up from my friends at Next Gen Guitars for $15.99 or for twice as much at Long & McQuaid. The owner only wants each pickup selectable individually and no middle positions. Those are nice pots too. They feel really good. They're firm and silent.
Daddy, chill.
Okay, we're going for a parchment colored guard. Here's a nice big blank. And as I mentioned, we're gonna see if there's a possibility to add this spoke wheel. I am skeptical, but we'll find out. Whatever industrial chopper they're using at StewMac or whoever makes these for them, pretty crude, lots of cracks. And several beard hairs. I think only one side of this is parchment. Can you tell which one it is? I'm going under the assumption it's the side with the protective film. Now to facilitate the tracing of the guard onto the Pickguard blank, I'm just gonna add some of these pieces of sticker paper so that there's something for the pencil to actually show up on. Okay, there we have most of the guard, and we've marked out the bottom lines of the two pickups and the outer perimeters, and we will use those markings to lay out the rest of the pickups. I should have an adequate template in here. We'll do some comparisons. With the string tension removed, there's a little bit of relief in the neck, but not bad at all. The high E is another story. The owner, Mark, says that he's only really having issues with the E's. He had to raise the action on the E's, so they're actually much higher than the rest of the strings. As I understand it, this is a fairly early Trent. It could just be that it's old and it's finally seeing the wear from the string tension. We can't do anything at this point but pull off the neck, adjust the truss rod, and see where that leaves us. Now, of course, we want to choose a suitable driver. We don't want any play in there at all, because we want to leave the screws, they look like they've been off before, but we want to leave the screws in as good a condition as we found them, so we find a bit that fits nice and tight. When using a drill for this, I always use the lowest power first to see if that's adequate. Unsurprisingly, we've got a bolt-on neck. This is pretty common for boutique or, individual builders to go with inset nuts rather than just wood screws. I do have the neck double supported here. But for this last one, I'm gonna make sure I support the neck and the body. Here are the inset nuts with chamfered holes. And here is the truss rod access. Let's see if we can get this spoke wheel truss rod nut to go on to this neck. I'm curious to see if there's any tension on this rod.
That's what she said.
If it's dual action, then we'll have no way of getting it off, and it kind of feels like it is. Here you can see a single action truss rod. The only thing you can do is tighten it, and this nut can come all the way off. Whereas this on dual action needs to be able to tighten it in either direction and bend it this way or that way. And so the nut has to be welded on. All right, if it's dual action, the nut is welded on and there's nothing we can do about it. So let's just give it a couple quick tightens, see if it straightens out. That's 1/4 turn. Okay, I didn't go quite to a half turn. Let's say a 3/8 turn. Okay, interesting. We actually have quite a bit of back bow at this point, so maybe I was over dramatic with my adjustment. I'll dial it back just a little bit. Go back to a 1/4 turn. Because a little back bow is not a problem. Because that's what it's for. It's to counter the pressure of the strings. So can't do nothing but put it back on and find out. So I gave up over a year ago, I think. And today there happened to be a little roach sitting out that my sister left there, and I hit it. And well, it's not helping. Sort of a sweet melange of anxiety, depression, and an amplification of ADHD. So productivity is slowed. But I found the centers to these cutouts by using this bass string guide that came off of the baritone conversion video I did recently. Just happened to be exactly the right diameter. So now I'm going to drill out pilot holes in the centers of each of those. That one looks sus. See what I mean about this one? It could just be that I screwed up that line. So let's double check. Well, there you have it. This side is only 9 millimeters, and this side is 9.5 millimeters. So it's a 1/2 millimeter off center. Now the width of the cutouts is 19 millimeters, aka 3/4 of an inch. I actually changed my mind about center punch and a big bit. I'm just gonna do a smaller bit because I'm gonna use a coping saw to cut these out anyway. So I'm gonna put this close to the edge, but leave some room to sand up to. Now, obviously, the most expeditious way to do this task would have been to take my bridge slotting jig, double side tape it to this, and use a 3/4 inch bit and get these out. It's also a really good way to melt the piece or screw up really quickly and start from scratch. So it doesn't really, this is a pretty soft plastic. It doesn't take long to clean up these lines, and then we'll be able to test the fit. Little test fit. We got a little more room to come this way, and then we need to clean up this pocket And then we'll place this over top to make sure we get the fit on that perfect. And then we got the neck pocket to clean up. As I've mentioned previously on the channel, the best way to do a perfect pocket is with a router and a guide bit. But I don't want to take out all the electronics or shim it or anything like that. I don't want to mess around with it. So I just did it by hand. Takes a little longer, but it still works. Again, this is where a template of the entire guard would come in handy. You could just use a 45-degree bit or whatever bevel you want. I'm just going to do it by hand. It really doesn't take that long. I use the offcuts to add tabs for contact. In the off chance it doesn't need fretwork, I'm going to give it a quick polish with some steel wool and butter the board. We'll re-examine once it's back on the neck. Once it's back on the neck? Once it's back on the guitar. It's in these more intimate moments with the neck that you can see some details you might not have noticed. A couple of frets coming a little high. So we're going to see if we can knock those down. Now we're going to put the neck back on and see how it's doing. All right, after the initial tune-up, the neck is now appearing dead straight, which you actually kind of want a little bit of relief, but we're gonna leave it under tension for a little while and come back and see if it's given us the relief we want, and then set the radius, because as I mentioned, the owner had put the E strings higher than the rest of the radius of the fretboard to accommodate for what was probably some neck bow and also some high frets. So we will correct the radius of the bridge and see where that leaves us. A few moments later, we're getting some buzz. The action is at 1.5 millimeters or below on every string, which is far more than comfortable. So we're gonna raise the action on a few, give it a few more minutes to acclimate, and then likely we will back off the truss rod just a little bit after we check the straightness of the frets with a straight edge. Okay. One unfortunate situation we have here is the treble side of the neck is now straight and playing well. But the bass side does have a little bit of back bow and there's no fall away. Fall away is when the highest frets are actually sanded down a little bit, or the neck fretboard is sanded down a little bit so that the vibrations at the center of the string, so obviously they're the widest at the center of the string, so that they don't vibrate against the frets and cause this buzzing. Another thing I've noticed is that the saddle adjustment screws are almost all the way through the saddles, so we're gonna raise the bridge base plate so that we can lower the saddles a bit, because there's plenty of room for clearance on the back of the bridge plate here. Now the way this is designed is that the top screws just screw the bridge plate to the posts, and the actual adjusters are hidden inside. So if you don't have a lot of hex keys, you're shit out of luck. See this? It's moving the whole post, so you're not actually adjusting the height. Now I need to hold the post steady while I adjust the inner height adjustment. Not loving this design. Perhaps I'm missing the point, but this seems over-engineered to a fault. At least the saddle adjustment screws use the same hex key as the post adjustment screws, the internal ones. So I was just talking to the owner and I talked about cutting a T-shaped slot in the guard so that you can access the truss rod, and that will also involve cutting a little slot here, and that's what we're gonna do. It doesn't even need to be all that deep.
That's what she said.
But I would like it to have a nice round bottom.
That's what he said.
So here we go. All right, now we just need to calculate out how much of the pickguard needs to be removed to A, slide this in. Looks like probably just a little bit there. And B, how much side to side action. All right, I worked out the clearance required for the hex key. This is just the vertical clearance, but that's at the level of the guitar, but that doesn't take into account the 2 or 3 millimeters of pickguard. And so I can either make the whole slot wider or simply bevel the slot, and then it will match the bevel of the sides. It could be cool. All right, I checked in with the owner. He likes the cutout. We are good to go on the pickguard, and now we just need to finish up the fret and bridge work, and we can get this back home. Now, since that is such a temperamental neck, it's going to need fretwork done under the strings, well under tension. And I don't feel like doing that right now, so let's move on to our 65 Mustang and change pace a little bit. If you've seen a lot of my videos, you may have seen this guitar before. I did a comparison between this and the Mustang because I paid the same amount. I should clarify, I paid the same amount in initial cash investment. To get this, I traded a JB Hutto / Jack White Rezo Glass airline guitar that I had paid $500 for and did a bunch of work to. This guitar came with a refin, and I actually stripped the finish back to the original, which is mostly present, but obviously has some damage and has some sandpaper scratches, but also has some original checking, buckle wear. I definitely prefer this over the sort of grayish taupe that it was before. So what's the issue? These switches.
This is Fender Flub 3.
In fact, on my Mustang, the only part I had to switch out, aside from making the guard and the fretboard, were these switches. The rest of the electronics worked fine, but these Mustang switches, I can't blame Fender for this, because he didn't know they would suck eventually, but they suck eventually. And so I will show you just how usable this is. Pretty much can't ever get any of the pickup positions to work. And so we're going to swap out the switches. We're also going to clean up the frets and the fretboard. Oh, shout out to Daco Stringed Instruments. Got a new sticker and a new t-shirt in the mail. This one's going on the old Lampo. Now let's see if Next Gen sent me the right parts. Not that they wouldn't have. One. And a two. Alrighty. Using these safety string tuning posts was definitely a good decision. No sharp ends. No, they sent me a black one. And I checked my invoice. Yes, I ordered 2 white ones. Of course, I didn't notice till after I opened it. Well, that's a major bummer. I thought since Brett quit, there weren't that many potheads working there and they'd get the switches right. I really don't think I want to go through the hassle of installing the wrong color switch, so I'm going to try some Lloyds on these switches and see if we can get it at least playable for now until I get the right switches in. Lloyds, focus. Lloyds. Lloyds, the fresh maker. All right, so frankly, that was somewhat disappointing, but it did force me to work harder at cleaning the existing switches, and we'll see if that worked. All right, Next Gen got back to me immediately, apologetic, sending me the new switch. Awesome, great customer service as always. Love that company, support them. Because these guards shrink over time, almost none of the screws can still go in straight. They all have to have a bit of an angle to accommodate the shrinkage. When I was younger, I was confused why the fit was so bad. Just for fun, let's take off the neck so we can look at the stamp. factory neck shim. These frets are super low, but it was playing fine. So we're gonna leave them in for now, but we will clean them up. And the fretboard is pretty gross. Now, I don't like using steel wool inside my shop anymore because it gets everywhere, so I'm outside. I'm gonna clean up the frets real quick, and then we will butter the board. And yes, there are divots and there's fret wear, but really the next step for this thing is a refret. And so doing some minimal work here just to get us until that point, so we can enjoy this for probably another 5 or 10 years before we actually have to do a refret. Could I recrown? Yes, but there'd be almost nothing left. Happy to be leaving that all outside. Speaking of refrets, Fender was known for his sideways fret installation, which you could either take as a mistake or not. It's certainly not as straightforward as hammering in, but it may be superior. I have no real opinion on the matter. These nuts are tiny, they're shallow, they're narrow, and they break all the time because the bottom of them is also radiused, so they're even smaller. This is Fender Flub 4. The nut on this guitar is also kind of screwed up, and somebody filled it with baking soda or bone dust and super glue. And we're just gonna leave it because it plays fine. If you want to see how I repair a Fender nut, watch this right here. Half the time I make these, they crack in half the moment I put the strings on. So for this one, we're going with brass, baby. Put on all the strings just to get the layout so I can mark the nut and file the rest of the slots. Now this is Fender Flub 4, 3, 2, 5. This is Fender Flub 5. Fender Flub 5. The location of the volume knob is right by where all of your playing happens with your right hand, and so frequently the volume knobs are hit, and if you're playing a gig, then your volume goes way down or way up. Either way, if part of your design requires the invention of a device to block that part of your design, you might have messed up. Honorable mention, if almost every guitar you send out has a shim under the neck, perhaps you should consider changing the geometry of the neck pocket. Headstock geometry is another issue. Requiring a string tree, not ideal, but there are worse things to happen. Instead of needing a scarf jointed neck or a much thicker piece of wood, you have this little piece, and I think that's a fair concession. A slotted headstock would have solved this issue as well. All right, let's finish up this Trent guitar, and then we'll give a summary of our Fender flubs, talk about what Leo did to fix them at G&L, and feel free and let me know what I missed, what your least favorite part of Fender guitars is, and what I got wrong. I'm sure you will anyway. So this neck is super annoying because you can't do a fret level without keeping the tension on. I do have one of those Stewback neck jigs, but not going to use it. So my first area of concern is in the first 3 frets. Then we're going to move down to here where there's an issue. Then here. Then we'll think about putting a fall away in. See right away, you can see what the issue is here. We've got a low 2nd and 3rd fret. See, we're knocking some off the 4th here and the 1st. Ouch. Okay, I'm fairly certain that this partial leveling job up to the 7th fret has taken care of a majority of the buzzing issues. So we're gonna polish these frets. We're gonna re-crown them, of course, first, and do another test. The first pass I did was with 800 grit. Now I'm moving on to 1000 grit, then I'll go to 1500, 2500, and then I'll start polishing. Usually I don't touch the very top of the crown till I get to the 1500, but I get closer and closer as I get higher in the grits. So you tilt your sandpaper a little bit closer to the center of the crown with each grit. Now I'm on 1500 grit, and I will touch the top of the crown before moving on to 2500 grit and then polishing. Now Mark had told me he was breaking a lot of high E's, and here we've done it again. This is where I suspected it was happening, is right here where the string is held in the tailpiece. It's a pretty sharp edge, so we will give that a little bevel. Last but not least, we are going to add a little groove in these saddles so that the strings don't wobble. And of course, we're angling backwards. This is just to guide the string. It's not going to be the end point of the string necessarily. There, now it doesn't wobble back and forth. It stays right in the slot. All right, nothing left to do here but string it up, polish everything down, and give it one more test. Actually, we're gonna test it without the strings because I want to give it back to him perfectly clean. So, forgetting about the high E, man, it's so nice to play. It's so nice to to play, not pray, on freshly polished frets. Sweet. Sick. Oh snap, I forgot. We got to finish the 1965 Mustang. Out of my usual guitar strings again, so today I'm going to try Gibson Ultralight Mediums. Weird. Oh, this is a good sign. Rust. Factory sealed to guarantee freshness in every set. Those were a gift from a friend. I have no idea how old they are, but still, in a sealed package, you wouldn't expect rust. Speaking of rust, segue! Because this bridge is so rusty, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of some board butter. Clean it up a little bit, stop the rust from spreading. All right, let's try some 9-42s. These are definitely vintage AF, but let's see if they're rusty too. This isn't even a sealed pack. Stapled together. Offer expires December 31st, 1981 to buy these sick t-shirts. How much are they? $5.50. Yeah, they're rusty. Maybe we should just keep these as a souvenir. All right, I'll see if I can cobble together some strings from here. All right, a mélange it shall be. Keen-eyed observers will have noticed that the strings were installed backwards when I took this guitar off the wall. I actually go through here, back underneath the bar, and then over the saddles. These Fender bullet end strings are actually ideal because these ones all bend still on the winding, and that's annoying. The bullet sticks out quite a bit though. Fun fact, these are now called wizard end because woke. All right, this video has been going on for a long time. So let's run through the 5 Fender flubs. Number 1, truss rod access. Some people say, oh, you can do it with the tool, oh, the blah, blah, blah. Lots of different years, lots of different models, and lots of copies of Fender products that do not accommodate for tools. What did Fender do at G&L? Fender Flub 2, Jazzmaster Bridge, and Tailpiece. Some people love it, a lot of people hate it. It seems like a majority of people shim their neck to get it to work properly. What did Fender do at G&L? In other words, he turned his back on that vibrato. Did I say tremolo earlier? Thanks, Leo. Number 3, Mustang switches. Although when he installed them, it's a pretty cool switching system with in-phase and out-of-phase and on-off-on switches. It could have been foreseeable that they would let in enough dirt to become incapacitated. What did Leo do at G&L? Toggles only. Flub number 4, teeny tiny nuts. And at G&L, he mostly kept the teeny tiny nuts with the radiused bottoms. Some of the models, I think the lower end ones, have plastic nuts with a flat slot at the bottom. And Fender Flub 5, the volume knob location. At G&L, it may have gotten even worse than at Fender. Clearly did not hear the players' complaints about this, did not fix it. Some of the models, it's not true. Some of the models, the controls are further away, but many, they retained the... Leo? I'm sorry, Leo. I'm so sorry. You did everything right. You never made a mistake in your life. At least that's what I read in the forums. Nonetheless, yes, he did not correct the volume knob location, except on some models. So the same people who will tell you that Leo never made a mistake will also tell you that any guitars that came after 1965 are complete. One of the things I hear complained about the most is the 3-bolt neck. And it just so happens that this was a invention or convention of Leo Fender, which he did indeed carry on into his G&L line. Not only is the lack of a 4th screw really negligible, in fact, there are many guitars out there with 2 bolts and even 1 bolt holding their necks on. But it allows for the 3rd screw to be loosened and a height adjuster at the heel to be adjusted before you tighten it again. So you can adjust the neck angle. A significant improvement.
Goodbye, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, hit like, leave a comment. Let me know what you think.